Hello, and welcome to this episode of Moments in Credit Union History, sponsored by CUNY Mutual. My name is Stephanie Smith, and I am the Executive Director of America's Credit Union Museum in Manchester, New Hampshire. Today, it is my honor and privilege to welcome to the show Sarah Bang, a force in the credit union movement, someone who has worked in all aspects of the movement. By Sarah's own admissions, she seems to be known as the shared branching person, and that's a little bit of the history she's going to share with us today. But I will tell you, and it's no secret to anybody that I've talked about this subject with, I am a huge fan of shared branching. So thank you for making my life easier.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
Welcome.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And it's my honor to be here. I really appreciate being included in this very much.
Absolutely. It just makes perfect sense to bring you on and have you tell us a little bit of the history from your own perspective. I think that a lot of times those of us that haven't been in the movement as long just take for granted that some of these things just exist in the credit union realm, shared branching and that sort of thing. But they had their roots, not too long ago. So, let's sort of unpack it a little bit. And how did we get to where we are now?
Okay. Well, are you talking shared branching?
I am. Absolutely.
You are. Okay. Well, honestly, if you go back and look at the history of shared branching, at least the FSCC shared branching, where I started in shared branching, it's honestly miraculous that this happened. There were a group of credit unions in the late 80s, early 90s who realized that to compete in the marketplace, they needed more branch access for members. And as a result, they decided to combine their branches or start working on that. And when it first started in the early 90s, at least FSCC, when FSCC first started, we only had 4 branches. And those were what they call standalones at the time. Standalone branches are ones that not one individual credit union owns. It didn't take long before they realized that wasn't going to work. So I can't remember which credit union it was, but I believe Patelco was one of them. Ed Callahan's credit union said, listen, we're going to open up our branches so that you can send your members into our location, but you're going to have to pay us to do these transactions. Now, and the reverse is true, and we will pay you to do transactions in your branches. It's much more complicated than that, but think about the bravery of the credit union CEOs who went to their boards and said, we're going to open up our branches. We're going to send our members into the branches of competing credit unions to get service. Think about that. Exactly. And yeah, honestly, and think about how courageous that was. I mean, and they did it. It wasn't easy. I mean, there were a lot of things that needed to be worked out. We were using, at the time, we were using ATM technology. We still did, but we blew up the pipeline, and that took us a while to perfect. But over the years, it got smoother, easier, and we understood what we were doing. When I first actually started with FSCC, we were in 4 states, and I can't even remember how many branches we had. It was just in the hundreds. Where we kind of made the difference was that we wanted to use the branches of existing credit unions to maximize the money that credit unions had spent on brick and mortar. And so that was the revolutionary part of what we did, and what I believe made shared branching something that many, many, many more credit unions could participate in, instead of a standalone, but any credit union that wanted to could open their branch to the members of other credit unions and serve those members. So
right, and you did say it's one of these concepts that is completely foreign. I've talked to other people about this concept, and it was best described to me as going to your board of directors and saying that we were going to ask members to go into other credit unions, and the board's knee-jerk response would be that that would be a very cold day in a very hot place. But it just makes sense.
Yeah.
And I don't
Well,
know
it makes sense for credit unions.
Absolutely.
It makes sense for credit unions. If I were a CEO of a bank, I'm not sure,
Right.
I would do something like that. But because credit unions are willing to collaborate and even collaborate with competing credit unions. I mean, that's the beauty of this wonderful movement, is that we can compete with each other, but we understand the bigger picture, and that is serving members.
Right. And we talk about these principles and the cooperative movement, and this is just a perfect example of it, and how you brought it to life. And I know that it wasn't just branches, it was also 7-Elevens.
That's right. Yes. Well, a few years into it, I don't know if you remember, but we had this big change in ATMs. We had some security issues, and there were some big changes being made in ATMs. And what a lot of credit unions were doing, and a lot of banks as well, was instead of fixing old machines, they upgraded to bigger machines that could handle more information. And 7-Eleven had what they called their VCOM units, right? And these VCOM units were in, I want to say, 2,200 7-Elevens around the country. And I would watch American Banker newsletter and see, stories about the VCOM units, and went to look at them, and these VCOM units could handle financial transactions. These were monster ATMs that could handle more complex financial transactions. And I thought to myself, and then I talked to somebody related to 7-Eleven and found out that their biggest paying transaction was something like bill paying. I mean, you looked at all, and I thought those guys probably would appreciate a visit from credit unions who might be able to bring real financial transactions to these units, and more financial transactions to these units. So there were a couple of us who just camped out with 7-Eleven, and until they opened the doors. Seriously, it took us a year to get in there, and I remember it was a really cold meeting at the very beginning, like, we just want you to leave us alone kind of thing. So we're meeting with you. And then at the time I said, listen, we have this technology, this shared branch technology, and members are used to going into the branches of other institutions to do their transactions. This is something that looks like you would benefit from. We have, and like I said, at the time, I think we had like 12 million members that could do this. And suddenly everybody's sitting up straight in their chair, and the question was, you mean we don't have to connect to every individual credit union? No, we've already done that. You just need to connect to us, and then we can do this for you. And it wasn't easy, I will say that, but toward the end of the conversation, they had picked up the pen and they were starting to do their own spreadsheets. I mean, you could tell this was going to go someplace with these folks. And so we proceeded. It took almost, I want to say, 2 years for us to get it up and running, though. I mean, credit unions do business differently, and these were ATMs that honestly were set up, and I think Citibank was a big investor in them. But these were set up as ATMs. We would have meetings every week, and Bonnie Kramer, who was our COO, was in on these meetings, all of them. I wasn't in on all of them, but every few weeks we'd have to remind them, this is not an ATM. We don't need more ATM. The co-op is out there and they're doing great work with ATMs. We don't need another ATM network. We need a shared branch network. So that meant, we had to blow up a little bit of the pipeline. And they were concerned about it. And I said, well, if you don't want a shared branch network, then that's fine. But if you want to be able to do all these transactions safely and securely, then we're going to need additional space and bandwidth. So that's how that all worked. And when we turned it on, we didn't tell anybody. I mean, we were going to do a pilot, right? So we did a soft rollout, and we turned it on at 1,400 7-Elevens. And we sent a few of our folks out to several 7-Elevens in our area, and we're watching the transactions come through, and all of a sudden we see transactions. This very first day, we see transactions from a unit that we didn't send anybody to, but somebody had figured it out. I guess we did a good job in that we, a member without any training was able to do a shared branch transaction. And we're calling each other, Sal, is that you? Bonnie, is that you? Nope, that's somebody from, just an enterprising member. Which is actually a funny story. We used to tell credit unions, do not put up the shared branch logo until you are ready to go, because people will come in and demand to do a transaction with their credit union. So we knew that we were relevant and that members needed us from that standpoint.
Absolutely. As we shift, everything to, mobile based, and there's, the talk of whether shared branching will, sort of have lived its life in the credit union realm. I think that's a very real possibility, but I can tell you from my own perspective, having 3 young adult children who are testing their wings, they are members for life of their credit unions, as long as their mom can go into her credit union and put money in their accounts.
Yes, yes. Well, if I could just address that issue, we didn't. Shared branching was not formed because we have lots of branches and they were cheap. Mm-hmm. We, shared branching was born because credit unions don't have many branches.
Right.
And so I would argue, even though it's not my job anymore, I would argue that we probably need shared branching more than ever, because fewer credit unions have fewer branches, but you still want to have a presence. You don't need to go into a branch. In fact, one credit union did a focus group with the Microsoft folks, and they said, when do you want to use a branch and stuff? And what do you want most for your credit union? And he said, we want a branch. And they said, okay, why do you need a branch? Well, we don't want to go in. We just want to know it's there. Okay, so that is a terrible reason to build a new branch, but it's a perfect reason to be a part of shared branching.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, thank you for sharing this moment in credit union history with us, Sarah. We appreciate your time. We know that you're a very busy woman, so thank you for sharing with us.
It's my pleasure. It's an honor for me, and love talking about shared branch. It is the one channel that only credit unions will ever have. It's the one delivery channel that only credit unions will ever have.
Absolutely, and we like to tell people what makes us different.
Yes.
So thank you for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you.